Welcome to the video. We are coming off a solid week of trading. What do I mean by a solid week? We had a lot of great setups from last week. I'm not going to go over those setups. We're just going to get on to the next week because trading ain't about what you did. It's about what you're going to get done, right? You don't get points for yesterday's game today. So we're going to start this marking up US30. And I'm going to show y'all what I see last week. I mean, everything pretty much went to plan. My directional bias be pretty good most of the time. My areas are very solid, so we're just gonna continue with that. As you can see, the areas that I did have here, pretty well respected. They change over the week, but that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. But we're gonna move into this next week, starting with US30. So first of all, we're gonna start on the weekly. We gotta do our top-down analysis. So looking on a weekly, let me go ahead and delete this trend line just so I can see better. As we can see, it already broke the trend line, which could signal us into a downtrend or at least a downward market for the moment being. But looking on the weekly, all right, what do we got? So as far as candlestick structure, we do have higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. So the candlestick structure is still bullish. It is hitting an area where we previously saw that there was some great rejection all the way down. But given that it's already recovered this, see this whole area here, right? So if you don't know anything about US30 indices at all, like this whole thing right here was just the market not really crashing, but this was a supposed, I guess, recession. This was the time being that everybody thought, the economy's going to shit, blah blah blah. So this is when the market had fell down. Now usually indices are just built to go up because companies are very money hungry. They continuously try to raise their profits in any way they can. So after you see big dips like this, what happens is the market tends to recover and then ends up going to make new highs, right? It happens over and over. As we can see here, big dip, recovers, makes new highs. Big dip, recovers, makes new highs, right? But that's against the point. All right, so right now we have it in a buying structure. This can still potentially come back down to this purple little level of support and resistance I have here, potentially bounce up. But we'll just see. We'll see where it goes based off the lower time frame. Right now, it's still in a bullish structure. We go on the daily. We see a huge bearish candle, which, in my mind, either is going to do one of two things. It's either going to pop straight back up, which is going to signal, la, 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 keep doing that. It's going to signal strong buys, heavy buys. So after that first day and it shows a strong bullish candle, the next day we should be looking, really bullish, or we'll see a spinning top where it consolidates and then continues to push up. Or we may see it just continue to drop down, you know, we're going to go from there. Right now, we have a strong bearish candle. We see it's in a seller's, market in a way on the daily. So we're going to move down to the 4 hour. Next thing's next. All right, what do we see? This is where I started my markup. On the weekly and the daily, that's where I kind of just look at the structure. I look at the candles, maybe to give me a bias in a way, a slight bias as to what might happen because the higher time frame obviously is the strongest. But I start my analysis on the 4 hour. This is where I find my directional. This is where I find my levels, and this is where I really trade off of for the most part. Obviously, I drop down to a lower time frame. So first and foremost, what do we see? I have these kind of marked up from last week. I kind of fixed them on Friday. You always got to stay ahead of the curve. So being that the weekly is already in a bullish structure, the daily is potentially in a bearish structure, right? We may want to see this fall down to this purple level here. It could fall anywhere within these wicks, right? First and foremost, when you start looking for a trade setup, you kind of got to know where you're expecting this trade to go. Like how far can it really move? So when I'm looking at the overall market and the weekly is bullish, the daily is bearish, the 4 hour is bearish, right? Where could this bearish market get to before it either continues or reverses? And in my mind, it's going to be this level of support and resistance down here that I like. Do I want to edit it? Do I want to edit this line? Bring it up a little bit. No, we're gonna stick with it because if it crosses up before then we'll start to look buys after. But right now we're in a seller's market, so for the time being, what we're gonna do is look for sales. So we have the highs, we got the lows, we have it retesting this previous low point, and now we have it potentially breaking the lows. So what we're looking for here is we already have one break of the zone. Actually, let me fix the zone. We already have this one candle breaking. Now, when the momentum is in the direction that it's breaking, then I only need one candle, and then on the second candle, I'm gonna begin to look for my continued sell entries. So after this candle, basically as soon as the market opens, at least for me starting Monday, I'm going to be looking sales from this area right here I'm gonna look forward to retesting this area and then drop down to this purple level. Obviously remaining cautious when it gets down to this area right here where there's a lot of wicks. So making sure I stay vigilant right here. Right, so my first TP is definitely going to be at this orange line. Second TP is going to be at the purple line. And if I can get an entry somewhere in here, you know, it might be looking like a 1 to 3, 1 to 4, depending on how my stop loss and everything gets placed, depending on how these trades gets placed. It might just end up falling immediately when the week opens, which is going to be kind of frustrating. But I'll look for moves damn near on Tuesday after the market recovers from the fall. So that's really all I'm looking for here. The market's already set up. I got my highs, lows. We're looking for breaks, retests. We're looking for it to get to the next levels, and then we'll look for our next trades. So now we're going to go to SPX. Same thing. It broke this counter trend line, so let's delete this. It's still respecting this one, but we'll keep it up for now. On the weekly, what do we see? Again, bullish structure, right? Higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. This is a spinning top. We already know the market just crashed, and now it's recovering, so more than likely it's going to finish its recovery. When is it going to do that? I don't know. So we go down to the daily. What do we see? Obviously, this strong bearish pressure here with a wick off of a level of support and resistance is near it. So it can fake back up or it can retest it and continue to fall. We'll just see where it goes from there. But this overall structure is bullish as well. I'm going to delete this line here. This was just highs, somewhere I could target if I wanted to buy. And then we look at this. Now, something you got to get used to in this market is patterns and structure, because all of this is just structures and patterns. All right, you see the same thing over and over and over and over again, and to the point where you just see something and it's like, man, yeah, I've seen this too much and I knows what happens after this. Like, so yeah, it's not going to be 100%, but more than likely, I've seen this pattern a million times. More than likely, it's going to do this, and it gives you a great deal of confidence. So when I'm looking at this, what do I see? Yeah, even though it's making these lows here, lower high, lower low, potential lower high, and to potentially break these lows, what do I see is a counter trend line. I see a pullback motion. I see the strong move of this whole wave, right? I see this as a strong move. And then we have this, right, kind of choppy. Before, in my brain, it pushes up to make new highs, right? And it looks something like that. This is just a pullback before it continues to buy. And given the fact that the market did crash and more than likely it wants to recover, I would anticipate this holding up that structure and continuing to buy. So, all right, we got the 4-hour highs, 4-hour lows. I'm gonna go down to the 1 hour to see if there's anything that I can mark out there that I would like. Not really. No, there's not really anything I like here. So again, what are we going to be looking for? Right now it's in a downward structure on the 4-hour. Again, even though the weekly and the daily are up, I respect the 4-hour the most, and I use the weekly and the daily to kind of filter out some of my trade setups, depending on if I want to take them or not, given the structure of the daily and the weekly. Now, what I'm going to be looking for here is for it to basically come back up into this level here, respect it, drop down to these lows or even lower. Pretty simple. Yeah, and then if it doesn't, obviously we'll go from there. I'm only going to be looking sales until these highs get taken out, and then once they get taken out, then I'll start looking for buys. And yeah, that's about it for SPX. We're just going to be looking sales until the structure changes back up. US30, we're going to be looking sales until the structure changes back up, keeping the fact in the back of our mind that this could switch over to a buyer's market and being prepared to start taking buys maybe midweek, near the end of the week. And then last but not least, NAS. As you can see, a lot of these pairs look exactly the same. Why? Because, when you look at these markets, US30 kind of moves, not even US30, the top about 7 to 10 companies moves most of these markets. So when you see one indice, more than likely the other ones are going to be looking very similar to them because they're all getting moved by the same few companies. So looking at this, starting on the weekly, what do we see? We see bullish structure, higher lows, higher highs, spinning top showing that it can continue or reverse. On the daily, we see a bearish pattern here, but again, it hasn't really broken the lows of this daily structure, so it can still tap this low and buy up as it already started doing. I would probably want it to come back down lower again. On the 4-hour, we have it pulling back. It's already smacked a daily low, so maybe if it breaks this counter trend line, I could begin to start looking buys immediately. We have the 4-hour highs. I'm going to adjust this to the 4-hour lows of the current market direction. And then we have the retest here. On the 1 hour, what do we have? This was a potential trade setup that I was going to take that I want to say I didn't take, only for the simple fact that my brain wasn't all the way there mentally. And then you can check out my shorts and I talk about that. My latest short, I talk exactly about why I didn't take this trade setup here. But it was a good trade setup. What happened is the 4 hour broke above the level, but again, until it breaks twice against something, against the overall direction, then it isn't a momentum flip for me, or the zone is still respected for me. So even though it broke above it, it's still respected as long as it comes back within it on the next candle. So when it came back underneath in this candle, I would have seen it come back into the zone, start to pull back, and then make new lows, and that's where my entry would have been at for roughly a 1 to 2 as of right now, or even maybe close to a 1 to 3. But on the 1 hour, what do we got? We have highs, we got lows down here, and being that they're matched up with these zones, I really don't care for keeping them here. And again, it's the same thing. We're going to look forward to retest this level, drop down to here, and then if we see it break this kind of trend line, I may just start going in for buys up to this level. It breaks here, buys up into this purple line. And that's really just my analysis for the week. I'm going to try to make these very quickly. If y'all want more in-depth breakdowns of my markups or my trading strategy, whatever the case may be, definitely leave it in the comments. I like to make these quick because I understand it's really just a lot of the same shit over and over and over and over and over again. You know, you draw your zones, you identify direction, you see what the candlesticks are looking like across all the time frames, and then you wait for it to get to an area where you like to trade, and you look for your entry style, you look for your entry setup, because honestly, as I said before, your entry setup and your entry style is the most important thing in trading. Like, it's easy to find areas where it can move from. It's easy to identify the direction it can move in. Everybody can do that, but not everybody's profitable. And that's because they don't understand their entry style, they don't understand their exit styles, and that's the most important thing that you should be focusing on. So I like to go through these markups very quickly because they're very easy. And then if at any point you want to stop the video and just see what I did, try to copy it or mimic it, by all means, of course. And again, yeah, if y'all want a more detailed breakdown of what I'm expecting for this week or live trading for the week, whatever y'all want, just let me know in the comments. And I'm going to see y'all in the next video.